Hey, Noclip podcast listeners, it's your boy Jesse back at it again. We need to find a name for all of you. No Clippers, no Clippies. I don't know, we'll workshop that. Anyway, this is your free preview of this month's Patreon exclusive episode. Every month we've been posting something fun over there, usually a review of a Hollywood adaptation of a classic video game. This month, while browsing the interwebs, a name jumped out at me. Yakuza Like a Dragon. Somehow, despite the title, the movie is not based on the latest entry released in 2020 with the same name, but is instead based on the first game in the series. Released in 2007, it's a Japanese crime drama. It's more of a comedy, directed by Takashi Miike. I've never seen any of his other movies, but Frank has, and he had some really positive things to say about them. You can hear all of his and the rest of the crew's thoughts on this wonderful movie if you head on over to patreon.com/noclip. Sign up today not only to hear our raw, uncut thoughts on this home run of a film, but you'll get access to behind-the-scenes content, bonus videos, and of course, a warm, fuzzy feeling deep in your soul. You can also sign up at our Battle Pass tier and become a chairman of the Noclip family, an O'Dwyer clan subsidiary, along with this lovely list of people: Cody Krieger, Forrest Pruitt, Cameron Ladd, George Sirkotis, Jacob Godserve, and Tohir Tiliev. Thanks so much to them and everyone else for the support. In this snippet you're about to hear, we talk about some of the characters of the film that we loved and some we were confused by, but mostly we talk about the unrelenting force that is Goro Majima. Again, if you want to hear the full thing, patreon.com/noclip is the place to be. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with a regular episode. Or, well, I won't be, because it's my birthday. Anyways, enjoy!
I guess the biggest one of these, where I can totally see where you're coming from, Jeremy, is with Kiryu specifically, because he's such a shroud of like his motivations, who he is, why he's doing any of this. I don't think I ever understood any of that. Yeah. Almost like who he was, where he came from. Like eventually they sort of get around to saying like, oh, he just got out of prison and he was part of the Tojo clan and all that sort of stuff. But even at the end, I wasn't quite sure what his motivations were, except he's nice to kids and dogs, I guess.
Yeah. Totally, which is like that's the classic screenwriting trick, is like have someone say, put the cat in the tree and have the hero save them. Yeah, since we're going by like character and kind of dealing with Kiryu right now, I just to kind of grab two plot points that I think highlight the like structure of the movie weighted under the lore of the video game. We don't really know in the movie why Majima is hunting Kiryu. We just know that like some shit went down 10 years ago. He's still mad about it, and he's like wants to kill Kiryu, but has like an odd fascination with him. In the games, I gather he's like not only looking for a worthy opponent, but trying to like awaken Kiryu, as I think the Dragon of Dojima is the phrase that he uses. He's trying to like get him riled up so that he unveils his like Dragon Ball Z power level or whatever. The other time when I felt it was the kind of final showdown with what's his name, Akira Nishikiyama. We only know that Nishikiyama exists. We know that he like runs a rival clan, and that's kind of it. And then we get the showdown with him, and it has kind of the gravitas of like a big final showdown with your longtime nemesis. But because all we've really seen of Akira Nishikiyama is that he takes off his jacket in like an office building and leaves it on the ground, and like it's like, whoa, that's fucking badass, dude. But yeah, I don't know. I just like. I wanted more. I don't think it was like, I don't think it's a failing of the movie for any reason other than it just had so much lore to deal with. And I was like, I want to know more. I want to know like what Majima's motivation is and why he's so obsessed with Kiryu. I want to know like why Nishikiyama and Kiryu have kind of like tension between them, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Kiryu ends up being the sort of like, in a way, a kind of a plot device just to connect everything, and to kind of get us in the room at certain times and to get people to explain what's going on. Like his sort of motivations don't really come into it so much. And definitely when it comes to like that final showdown, like the reason he's like doing the final showdown is because he's, you know, been told to go to do the final showdown, and that like the girl is trying to find her mom, and it just so happens that she's also there, and also the money and all that type of stuff. It's not like he really wants to go fight this dude. It's very much like he feels like a player controlled character where he's just being told where to go, which I don't know. In a way, I kind of enjoy. I just kind of let it, like, you know, I threw my hands up very early in this movie in a way that like I probably don't do with most Western movies, you know, and just went, whatever. Just like
it works too. Like Kiryu's kind of you know, like Gordon Freeman-esque kind of emptiness works really well too, because I think it having a character like Goro Majima who's so bombastic and so over the top, I think it buys you the real estate to have a more subdued protagonist, because they foil each other so well, they juxtapose so well. So like it doesn't feel like, I think if we had two Majimas, this movie would be too full. It would be like sagging under the weight of the bombast.
I agree, but man, a movie with two Majima sounds fucking amazing.
Yeah, there's like a Majima is everywhere meme too that I'm sure the Yakuza fans listening are screaming right now.
So we may have, I don't know, Frank, do you have any thoughts on Kiryu or how it relates to the games?
I will say I do like the fact that it is side quest. The movie opens with Kiryu getting dog food, which is an objective in the game. You have to find dog food for the dog, and like, of course, anytime you do anything in Yakuza, you run into a gang of angry Yakuza. So I thought the opening was perfect, and then he does his heat action where his arm lights up and he punches people, and it's like, oh, you nailed it. Yeah, that's kind of it. It's so funny they mentioned briefly, like, oh yeah, and you're in prison. It's like you don't show, like, that's such a big important part of the game. But there's a prequel film to this that Miike produced, like a 40-minute prequel film. And so I don't know if they use that to like as a pilot or a way to get funding for a bigger movie. Because the way Jeremy talks about it, it really feels like the movie's a commercial for you to play these video games.
It felt like that sometimes.
Because it's like, yeah, dude, if you want to know about Kiryu, oh my gosh, we got like 7 amazing games. Yeah, no, I will say, like, yeah, the Majima stuff was so fantastic and so well done. And yeah, I feel like Kiryu is the lens of the player. You're mostly looking outward in the world, so you spend so much time looking at it at Majima. And there's a lot of times they reenact specific showdowns. There's a fight, a boss battle, Kiryu and Majima in the baseball like little stadium.
Not surprised at all, especially as they basically teleported there in the movie. They met on the street and then suddenly they're in the baseball place. That's like, did you guys just file in and then do this whole thing? Look, okay, we may have run out of rope on Kiryu, so let's just talk about Majima, because as Jeremy said as well, he sort of occupies so much space that maybe Kiryu is sort of making that for him. So I didn't know this guy from video games. I think maybe I'd seen like, you know, GIFs or something, but like there was nothing was, you know, particularly, I didn't know anything about him. And from the first scene where he is first of all, of course, he's in a batting cage, you know, doing it. But the way they like shot and blocked that scene where he was hitting the balls and then the guy gets hit and then the guy's stuck underneath him. It was like reminded me so much of like, you know, Hong Kong Jackie Chan cinema stuff, you know, like Tokyo action movies of just like, you know, like stunt actors who can act, that type of like person that sort of exists more in Japan. All those guys, like the dude who was like, yeah, he was like, he couldn't sit up because the baseballs would hit him. And then when I think the last time he does it, he like hits him in the head or he uses his head to hit the ball.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Like a pool ball or whatever when you knock it into the other one. It's so great. That whole scene, the way you're describing is perfect, because like I can't remember if there are anime speed lines in any of those shots, but it almost feels like there was supposed to be. You know what I mean?
The sound design does so much of it as well.
Exactly.
Loads of like whooshes and ding and they did like just the sounds, even like there was like these kind of music video style parts that then bled into dialogue, and just the motivation, the pacing of it, I thought was so good. Like it kind of like tried to keep you along. And I love how that guy comes back after they do like the first sort of, you know, street scene where then he sort of ducks into the gun seller dude, and he's just like cooler than ice. He's just like, while this fight's going on. And then that guy turns back up again and is like, I'll continue to devote myself to you, even though he's been hit by the baseball. And then what happens? He sees him at the end of the fight and he sees him like spit on the ground and he's like, hey man, you're going to make the street. By the end of that scene, I was like, I love this guy.
Yeah.
I just want to watch like every scene with him.
Even better that it's punctuated by right after the spit thing, like, oh, haha, funny, of it zooming out and being like, you guys destroyed the street.
Yeah.
Like, but it's the disrespect. That's what it's about, baby. It's all about respect here on the streets of Kamurocho.
Totally, yeah. He's like, you're not supposed to dirty the streets, I think he says, or something like that, while it's pulling out. Yeah. It's just like, it's like good, synchronicity or whatever between the script and the action and the direction. It's like, it's not amazing, but it's just like, I think I've been so ground down by Western action movies, especially with the reliance on CG and how like everything's locked off or very, very, like very almost too early decided camera movements because they need to lock it for CG or whatever. Like you don't have that sort of like, I don't know, effortless playfulness or whatever.
I was just gonna say on Majima, like tonally as kind of like he's not really like a villain, but he's for all intents and purposes, he's a villain in this movie. He nails that, like you were comparing this to Western action films. I think that the kind of like undercut by humor villain is a trope that's used a lot, but I think it's used in an interesting way here where he's like so bombastic and so over the top. It's not kind of like the quippy villain where he's like saying his plan, then he's like, oh, I like broke a nail, but he's talking about it while he's like dropping nuclear bombs. It's kind of like it's a similar thing to that, but because it's like Majima's not being silly. Like he's very committed to his code and his general behavior is so fucking absurd.
Yeah.
But I think it's like it works for me. Like part of the reason Majima is such a good character is he's just playing it straight all the time. Like I don't think he's trying to be zany. I just think he's like so effortlessly fucking insane. But underlining that is this like concretized kind of like Yakuza code that defines all his behavior. I don't know. He's just kind of this interesting paradox.
Yeah. He's not wild and crazy like the Joker where like people don't know what he's going to do. Like all of his henchmen know exactly what he's going to do before he does it. They're like, oh, please don't, like they all follow him. And then also like, I like how the sort of world of this movie allows for like some sort of like mysticism to exist around him in like the way the camera like moves with him specifically, like it does silly things. And like when he's peeking around that corner, when he looks down the hall and he's just like halfway in the corner, the framing of that shot is like leaning into his character. Or like when the detective picks up the body in the street and it still has a baseball wedged in his head, you know what I mean? Like like that wouldn't make any sense except it's Majima, and Majima is just like somehow he's just larger than life and larger than reality. So it's
like a Looney Tunes character in the world of this Yakuza movie.
No, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
He's like a trickster archetype where he's allowed to like move outside of the boundaries of rational behavior because he's like that's who he is. He's kind of this like demigod or something where he just like dances in like the liminal realm of bringing magic into it. Which is it kind of brings up an interesting point about this movie though, which I think is like, I think when it did some of the special effects stuff, like the baseball being lodged in his head, or like, or Majima hitting the guy's head to hit the baseball, I thought those moments worked really well. But it was interesting because I thought that some of the more like special effects heavy kind of like video game nod stuff didn't work as well. Where like during the shootout, they do like little quick kind of like punch-ins, and there's a few things during fight scenes where the speed ramps up really quick and it flashes to white and then it ramps back down, like the frame rate or whatever. And I thought that those were trying to emulate video game special effects, but I thought they kind of like cheapened the film for me. But then when the Majima stuff happened, I was like, oh, it's not that special effects in general are cheapening it for me. It's just that when they feel motivated by kind of like fan service, they felt less in place. But the Majima stuff felt very like appropriate for this movie. Like I liked when he violated the rules, but then when like, during the final showdown when Kiryu has flames coming out of his back, even though that happens in the game, it didn't land for me because I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. Like he's drinking like a fucking Mario mushroom potion.
The stamina stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What a favorite Majima battle? Majima Kiryu battle. Are we going for the baseballs down a hall scene, or are we going for I ain't gonna lose and let's start over with the baseball catching cages where he like resets the fight at some stage and then also like says I ain't gonna lose and keeps getting punched in the face over and over again. I ain't gonna lose.
I liked the earlier one, the latter of the two you're describing, where Majima like takes a huge hit and is doubled over with pain, and then he like steps away from that pose to go fuck with his henchman, comes back, gets back in the doubled over pose, and is like, all right, let's like continue from one. Yeah, I don't know. Just like it's pure Majima. He's just like he respects the dance so much that he can step out of the ongoing fiction of this fight and go like do something else and then come back to it. And it's, I don't know. There's just like, I guess that's kind of his whole thing though, right? Is because the reason he fights Kiryu is because he's like looking for this really good fight and respects him as a fighter. And so like if he doesn't adhere to the kind of like proper steps of the fight, he's like breaking his own code in some capacity.
I've never seen a character who was so content with being who they are in the story. He is happy to be just a henchman. He doesn't want to like run the entire town. He doesn't even really like. It's more about the fight. Winning the fight isn't even the most important part. It's just having a good fight. It reminded me of a little bit of the just there also all the characters were like interesting and like even like bit characters like the gun salesman guy. who loves the pain.
Masochist.
Pain. What did they call him? An M? Was that what it was?
Yeah, masochist.
A masochist. And she's like, "What's an M?" And he goes, "Well, let me tell you." And he punches him, and then he's like, "Ah." Or he keeps like offering up his feet to be crushed by the other guy because he's enjoying the pain. Just like. Is that guy in the game? Like, because to me, I was like, oh, if that's a character in the game, then it makes sense. Because
No
just
way.
like. Then that's the thing. But like, is that just something they made up for this movie?
Well, it's weird, yeah, because specifically in this, like, because every Yakuza game, I feel like there are weird, wacky merchants. So I feel like that trope is it. But like
Right.
the specific masochist isn't in there. Although in Yakuza 0, you do meet like, I forget his name, but he's like the biggest pervert in Kamurocho. So I felt like, oh, that kind of leans into that. Because also the guy's gun shop is in the back of like an adult video store. And then
Right.
there's an Easter egg in the adult video store is the Yakuza prequel film. The DVD is there.
That's cool.
Really? But yeah, like. It's so funny because when I think of gun vendor, I immediately think of Persona because Persona has a very famous gun vendor stuff. But no, yeah, he was. I think he was made up.
Yeah, I remember the guys in Like a Dragon, all those dudes who were you had to go get them breast milk or whatever, get them milk. All the guys, the like salarymen who dress up as babies and go to that that one like bathhouse or hostess house or whatever.
Were they wearing diapers? Is that what you're talking about? That?
Yes,
Yeah? Okay.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, and you have to. It's like a quest because there's crying babies, and then you go in and it's a bunch of old dudes, and then you have to go find the milk. It's like, and then you do a dance with them or something. It's just like, yeah. So that guy had that energy. I liked that.